Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our coaching cafe. We love catching up with everybody on a Friday and talking about all things coaching. Today's coaching cafe is all about unraveling the mystery around the ICF Credentialing Exam. My name's Paula, and I'm going to take you through the coaching cafe today. I might add that we have Natalie being very cheeky today, and she's dialing in on the Sky bus because she's heading over to Adelaide today. Okay, so before we commence, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which we meet today and their continuing connection to the land, waters and communities of Australia and the lands from all around the world upon which you might be joining us. We pay our respects to them and their elders past, present and emerging, and elders from Indigenous communities around the world. And we also acknowledge if there's anyone on the line today from an Indigenous community. Okay, so today we are going to have a chat about how to prepare for the ICF Credential exam. We're going to take you through before, during and after the exam. And as always, this is about creating community, creating shared learning experience, having thought-provoking conversations. And right at the end, for those of you who are coming along via ICF BCEs, you'll be able to take a snapshot of the certificate that you need at the end. Now, you may have noticed I am by myself today, so it can feel a little bit like I'm talking non-stop. So I would love to have great questions come in from people. So as we go through, please feel free to ask any questions you might like, and we'll see if I or someone else on the line can answer. Okay, so the background for this was I actually recently did the ACC test. And having done it, Natalie and I talked about it and thought, well, it would be good to demystify it a little bit. The good news is it's not really a mystery, but we thought we would demystify it a little bit for people and just give you an idea of what to expect in case you're heading into the exam. So about the ICF credentialing. So the ICF credentialing exam is a tool designed to measure a coach's knowledge of and ability to apply the ICF definition of coaching, the updated ICF core competencies, and the ICF code of ethics. So what I would say start with is if you don't have those documents, that is exactly where I would start, is to make sure you've got a copy of them, because that's actually what the test is testing you against. If you want to go and check out some more information, ACC candidates do the ACC Credential exam, and this was recently changed and it was reduced a little bit. So the ACC exam is now 60 questions, whereas the PCC and MCC exam is 78 questions. And they get a little bit more complex through the different levels. But you can actually head to the coachingfederation.org website to get all the information. The criteria is different in terms of the number of questions and approach to the questions. So the question is, what happens before you get to the actual exam? And I'm going to come back a minute. So in order you first of all have to make an application to the ICF if you would like to be credentialed. At the ACC level, what you need to have is 60 hours of coach training. You need to have 10 hours of mentor coaching, and you need to have completed 100 hours of coaching, and you need to log that. There is no specific log that you have to use. So it's really just however you would like to record the log. There are some criteria around what is paid, what is unpaid, and it's worth checking out the website to get all of those details. The other thing to note is for those people, which was like myself, that worked, I worked in HR, and I would have coaching conversations in the workplace. And so that is considered paid coaching, a paid coaching session, because I'm being paid to have those coaching sessions in the workplace. So it doesn't have to be external to your work, but they do have to be genuine coaching conversations, genuine coaching sessions where you are taking a coaching approach in that conversation. So once you have those things, you can then apply via the ICF website. What happens then is they go through and they check it all, and then you get a letter that invites you to book the exam. So with the exam, there's two different ways that you can sit the exam. They're both online, but one is where, and it's VU, I did write this down somewhere, VU, yeah, you can schedule an appointment with Pearson VUE. You can do this online at home, or you can go to one of their offices, and they have lots of offices. I was actually quite surprised when I had a look. There are lots of offices all over the world that you can go and sit the exam. And I do know someone in Perth actually who went to the office and sat the exam. And what you need to know about Pearson VUE is that they do exam conditions for across all sorts of things. So university exams, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of others, but so it's actually is under exam conditions. So particularly for people doing it from home, I chose the from home option. You do have to make sure that you follow all of the requirements that they need. So when you book a time, and you have to have booked that time within 60 days of receiving your notification. So once you get notification, you've got 60 days to sit the exam. Number one thing about it is if you're doing it from home, they do have very strict requirements for your PC, and there are tests that you can do to make sure your PC is compliant. Now, I had to do it I did it a couple of times beforehand, before I could make it compliant. It's things like you can't have anything open. So they suggest that you shut down before you actually start the process, so that it shuts down all the behind the scenes apps that you might have going on. I actually had to go into Task Manager. So it tells you, oh no, these things are still open even though you think you've closed everything. So I had to go into Task Manager and start closing things until I finally got it to be compliant with their system. And then when I went to do it on the day, you still have to go through the same process. Just because you've done it once and tested it, it still tests on the day. So it says you should be there 30 minutes early, and that is not an exaggeration from my perspective, simply because, to be honest, I found the setting up part the most stressful part. Just making sure you're ready to go, because it was technologically based, and I'm not probably the most technologically advanced person. So setting up the system, probably I found the most stressful. And the other thing you need to know is that when they say to you, you can't have anything on your desk, you can't be sitting behind a window, because they don't want people to be able to look at the questions through your window, they actually genuinely mean that. So I had to take photos of my desk and upload them. And then one of the moderators got online and was asking me questions about things that were on my desk. So I had a notebook. You're not allowed any notebook. You're not allowed a pen. I had to remove absolutely everything. There was a little Rubik's Cube box one of my kids had made that was just a decoration on my desk. That had to go. The only thing I was allowed to keep were my Lego flowers that my kids have made. They were allowed to stay, but you actually have, and they look at the walls and all sorts of things. So when they say your desk has to be tidy, they actually genuinely mean that there can't be anything on the desk. Okay, so that's the pre-bit. So checking your computer meets the requirements, and then really clearing your desk are probably the things that you can do that that helps get you ready. But get it sort of for me, it was a nervous thing about what if my computer doesn't work. The alternative is you can go to their offices, in which case their computers are all set up. You can just walk in. So it's really a choice as to what preference you have from that perspective. Okay, so what does the exam involve? How many questions? What type of questions? Oh, there is one other thing that you need to do. Oh, it comes up in the next bit. That's okay. So for the ACC exam, there are 60 multiple choice questions. And the types of questions are, there's actually, if you go to ICF, they talk about this too. They talk about situational judgment items. So basically what each exam item contains a realistic scenario. It describes a coaching situation, and then it follows with, and you're asked to select from 4, so multiple choice, 4 options. And mostly they are, what is the best response or the worst response? The best action or the worst action of the 4 items provided, the 4 options provided. And I actually think the hardest thing is deciding the worst or the best. So in general, you'll find there are some of the questions that are quite simple because they are literally based around the core competencies. And there are ones that you have to think about and pick which one do I think is the worst and which one do I think is the best or the best. It just depends. Oh, sorry. I'm going to have to come back. My apologies for that. Yeah, so it really is thinking about looking back at the ethics and deciding based on the ethics, which one of these is the worst or the best option moving forward. Yes, Jocelyn, I'm not sure what the SAT prep looked like, but it is really, I think I found some of them, like I didn't like maybe 2 of them. And then it's like, but which one is the worst or which one is the best? And so it's really thinking about it. Now, the great thing about the test is that there are a couple of really cool things I thought. One is that you can mark questions to come back to. So you can click a link and it says which reminds you that it's one that you weren't exactly sure on the answer. The other thing you can do is cross out answers. So if you're looking at 4 of them, and if this works for you, you can cross out the options that you definitely don't think they are. And so then you can focus on the 2 options that you are deciding between. And I thought it was actually quite useful, particularly the one that was to market, because you really had to think about the answer, because you could focus on those ones when you go back to review. So I found that really helpful. So the multiple choice, the judgment piece is the bit where there was some that it was which one do I think is more of or worse than or better, and you work through them that way. So how do you prepare and where can you find the sample questions? Now, so as I said before, I would start with go back and reread the the ethics, the core competencies, and really get a feel for them. But what I would also suggest is there are some videos, and I put them in a link here. So there's some ICF core competency videos. They basically did a series where they looked at the difference between the old competencies and the new competencies, and they dissected each of those competencies. And so there's a video for each one. And you can go and check them out on YouTube. So ICF YouTube has them. I found them really interesting and helpful because they were sort of they were taking you through the reason they were updated and giving you a really good sense of what they meant. They also talked about what good coaching looked like in that competency and what not so good coaching looked like. They're about 7 to 10 minutes per video, but I really felt like they gave me a good overall feeling about what the competencies were about. So that is my first tip, is go and check out the and I've put on here too where you can find the core competencies, the code of ethics, because I think the code of ethics is the one piece that helps you when you're trying to decide the best or the worst. Because if you go back to the code of ethics, it helps to say these are the things that we really need, and then match them in with those competencies. So yeah, so I would say but check out the YouTube videos. I found them really good to just cement in my mind what the purpose of the competency was and what it looked like when it was being used in coaching. The other thing that you can do is you can get sample questions. You can do sample tests. Now, I haven't put a link in here for this because most of them are for other coaching organisations, and I didn't necessarily want to promote one over the other. So what I would suggest you do is Google ICF ACC mock exam, and a whole bunch of them come up. I will say that quite often, once you've done it, it emails it to you. So then they have your email address. So if there was a couple that I went back and had to unsubscribe myself from later. But it's such a valuable tool. So you can go and try, and they have all sorts of exam questions, and gives you really good practice as to what the feel of it's going to be. And some of them don't actually give you the results, which was a little annoying, but I liked the fact that I still got the chance to go through the questions and get a feel for them. And then others give you the answers. And that too I found really useful, because you can go, okay, so I looked at this and I made a choice on this, but when you look at what the answer is, it gives you a clue as to why that one was the answer. So a shout out to Dominique here in Perth, because she gave me the tip to go and find the mock exams. So I went and found them and found them really useful. There are some sample questions on the ICF website, but I actually think they don't provide you with the answer. But you can go and find them. So if you just put it into Google, you can find everything that you need. So the booking of the exam, as I said, you'll get an email that tells you where to book in. And I think it's an hour I would allow 2 hours, because you need 30 minutes before you go into the exam. And then there's actually they put it into 2 blocks. So there's 30 questions in the first block, and then you can have a break. And if you are online, you've got 10 minutes for your break, so you can go to the toilet. And so you just say that you're taking the break. The one thing I didn't know was that you don't have to take the full 10 minutes. So if you don't need the 10 minutes, you can actually just come back and get started and go again. And you do need to know that even when you're doing it online, there's a moderator who is watching you the whole time. not sure I want to do that job, but there's a moderator who is watching so that you are, because it's under the exam conditions. You can't see them. They're not staring you in the eye, which I thought was great because I would have felt really uncomfortable, but they are, so they will know if you have left the room, if you've taken a phone call, if you've done any of those sorts of things. And if you do leave the room during the test, not during the break, or if you take phone calls, or if you do things that that you shouldn't be doing, that does mean that you failed that exam, and so you would have to do it again. So just think of it as exam, back in high school, your exams where you can't, someone is in the room. Yeah, so 2 blocks of 30 questions. And I, off the top of my head, I think there were 45 minutes that you got per session. So it's an hour and a half for the exam. In saying that, it's a quite generous amount of time. So I found that I was able to, for each session, answer all the questions, highlight the ones that I wasn't sure of, go back and review those ones. And then I reviewed all the questions again. And I finished both sections within 10 minutes within the time. So it is quite I thought the time, there was a lot of time in that to be able to answer the questions. So what happens on the day? You do need to have your photographic ID. So if you're going if you go to their location, you show them your photo ID. If you are doing it at home, they send you a link that you upload all of the things, including the pictures of your accommodation. And yeah, so so you have to do a bunch of those sorts of bits and pieces. So you need your ID. And yeah, so you can take that break. It's in the middle. And it's a 10-minute break. Someone's asked about if you need extra assistance. So when you actually apply, there is an option for you to be able to indicate if you require assistance. So, and then you can let them know what that assistance is, and based on your requirement, they will make adjustments for you. So I would suggest if you're at that point, go in, say that you click the link that says you need some assistance, and they'll help you through that. So one of the questions that has come through is there the same, is a time the same for PCC? It wouldn't be the same because there's more questions. I'm just not sure exactly what that time is, but I am sure that it would be more time because of the additional questions. Do you do all of that upload of ID and office setup in the 30 minutes before the exam or before the day of the exam? You do it on the morning of in the 30 minutes before the exam. So they're wanting to make sure it's the most current at that particular point in time. Do you find the application form on the ICF website? And do you have to submit a video of your coaching as well? Yes, you find the application form, you log in and you apply online. But no, you don't have to submit a video of your coaching if you have done all your coaching demonstrations as part of if you've got the 60 hours of coach training and it's been signed off by a coach training organisation as having completed, then you don't have to submit a coaching video as well. Is it all common sense dealing with could be this, could be that? For the most part, I did think it was quite logical. I did think that there were generally two options that you just wouldn't be doing that. And then it is just really thinking about which is better or which is the better option to take or which is the worst. But if you, it's really just applying it based on what you know about the core competencies. But overall, yes, I did think it was mostly common sense. And what if you finish up early? Look, my philosophy was check the ones you didn't you had the most difficulty deciding. But then I ran through them all just to make sure. And you can finish early if you like. So I did finish early because I'm not very good at just I can't just keep going over and over, because I like, once I've made the decision and I've reviewed it, I like to go. So you can actually finish it early. You don't have to keep sitting there for the time. And then what happens is once you submit, if you are attending at their location, as you leave, they will give you your results. If you are sitting it online, once you've submitted, pretty quick, you get the results from, you get your results. I believe you need a 78% pass mark. And within 48 hours, ICF will send you confirmation. So they still check it and make sure that you've met all the criteria. And then they will send you a confirmation. And if you've passed, you also get your badge that you can now promote yourself as being ICF ACC. If you didn't pass, they will send you directions on how to retake the test. And you can retake the test. So if you don't pass the first time, you've still got a chance to do that. Okay, that seemed like a lot of information. And so I guess we're almost on time. I can't believe I spoke for all that time. Does anybody else have any other questions about the exam or the process going through? Those resources, honestly, the competency videos, I was really surprised, but I found them extremely useful. And you can check out, if you Google search, you'll find a whole bunch of information. And it's just about thinking about, my best tip is think about yourself as a learner and how do you learn best? How do you approach learning that provides you with the best outcomes, and thinking about how you study for information, how you study, and then apply that. There was a question about just thinking about how long you need to study and prepare. How much time did I dedicate before sitting the test? It was probably the few days beforehand, and I originally started with reading the core competencies and then found that just reading them didn't bring them to life. And then I spoke to Dominique, who had undertaken the exam, and she told me about the mock tests. And then I was just Googling around ICF to try and that's when I found those videos. So I would say, and Natalie said, check out our blog for a whole series of coaching cafes on the core competencies too. Absolutely. Anything that you can get, anything you can find that brings the competencies to life and provides a practical application of them, I found very useful. So if you haven't already applied, you can start now and find bits and start really getting your mind in the mindset. I kind of felt a little bit like, because I do the coaching cafes and we talk about the competencies, that I had a pretty good understanding, but I did really value doing that extra prep before going in. Natalie also wants me to remind you about the podcast as well. So you can watch them on YouTube, you can check out the blogs, or you can listen to us on your favourite streaming service, and they'll all give you they'll all help to build that for you. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to thank you all for coming, and I really did appreciate the questions, because I was worried I would just be rambling on. As a note, we have, if you haven't seen it, the new dates for the our newly launched Diploma in Leadership Coaching have been released. We're going to run a May program and an October program. And if you have ACC and you're looking at moving to PCC, this is the perfect level 2 coach training program. And other than that, Thank you for all your kind messages as well. I would like to wish you a very happy Friday and hope you all enjoy your weekend.